ya makano. Osita de ma moneme mwakibia esi mwazobolo esa nikisi putano asinezi oyika nwanne anyị bofuo
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Tatiana Luboviski-Acosta, and I'll be your MC tonight. And I'd like to welcome you, I'd like to welcome you to tonight's event here at the Poetry Center. The Poetry Center in your own home, in this case, in my kitchen here in the Mission District of San Francisco. Sophia, Dahlin, and Uche and Nduka. Before we begin, I would like to make a land acknowledgement. So the Poetry Center and my kitchen are both located and sit on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of what we today call the San Francisco Peninsula. And I would like to thank and honor them for allowing us to continue to live, work, play, and struggle and fight here on this land. So just some like basic things before we head on into the readings. Each reader is going to read for approximately 20 to 25 minutes. It'll be Sophia first, then Uche. Then we will have some questions, and the two poets will have a conversation, hopefully. And I do ask, so we're going to be collecting questions throughout the reading, but please send them to the Q&A box. It should be located on the bottom of your screen. It should have like two little speech bubbles stacked on top of each other and say Q&A. And we'll be collecting those through the reading, and then we'll be answering them. We ask that you not put them in the chat because it will disrupt the flow. With that, I'm sorry. For some reason, Zoom makes me considerably more nervous and gives me more stage fright than speaking in person. But I'm going to go ahead and read Sophia's bio, and we'll go ahead and dive in. So Sophia Dahlin earned her BA from Bard College and her MFA from the University of Iowa, where she was an Iowa Arts Fellow. Her work has appeared in many journals, including Bomb, Fence, Lambda Literary, Denver Quarterly, and The Recluse. With Jacob Kahn, she edits the chapbook Press Eyelet. She lives in Oakland, California, where she teaches with California poets in the schools, conducts generative writing workshops, and hosts readings. Dahlin's Natch, her first full-length collection of poetry, was recently published as the 20th book in the City Lights Book Spotlight series. I had the absolute pleasure to read Natch in its entirety this morning, and I will say that it made my very California heart rich with sensual joy. And with that, Sophia, if you're ready.
Thanks, Tatiana.
My pleasure.
I love that you read it in a sitting. I think that's says something about its digestibility. thank you for that introduction. And thank you, Steve and Elise and Trey and Molly and Uche. Thank you for reading with me again. It's been so fun to be your co-poet. I mean, as fun as things are these days, right? It's been relative pandemic fun. But I am so happy to be virtually reading at the Poetry Center. I love the Poetry Center. And I think I'm gonna read some new things, and then my book, my beautiful, oh, you can see my ring light, my book, and then maybe some new things again if my voice holds out. Oh, that's right, I wanted to tell you, I haven't talked in like 2 days because my voice disappeared, and I teach, so all I do is talk, and I love to talk. So I haven't talked for 2 days, and this is just so exciting to be doing it again. But also if my voice runs out at the end of the reading, I don't know, it'll be nice. Maybe it'll add character. All right. In pursuit of simple bitchdom, Violet tells me Twitter tells her himbo is a thing. I say, what about herbo? Now that is why I am a poet. And half an hour later, she checks Twitter, herbo discourse. Well, that's why we're all a poet. I guess the double-edged availability of the quipping hive mind, I want that tweet honey, but I don't want to produce. I don't want to work at all. And that's why I'm a poet. Or that's why I'm in love and I commit to it, my heart all violets. Miguel James says in his poem called Amor, y no trabajaremos nunca, nunca, nunca. The best line in poetry. I think because it's about poetry, love, and not working. That is to say, the only thing I love. Violet is writing too, and I made us pink foamy drinks. They are sour, I wish they were hot. My throat suddenly thick and allergic to egg white, swallow anyway. She has had a bad day, bad men, bad laws bad. But she's writing. I made her a gin Campari sour. The work I do to make us easy still feels like work sometimes, not always. Her eyes open all my poems. Violet is in here right now. Glove money. I need money to buy gloves so that I never need again to touch it. Money. I need gloves to separate my hands from dollars, also from other hands. When they hand me money, handling others' money, others' hands, disgusting. And cold the hands or hot. To regulate mine own hands, temperatures, gloves. To buy them, money. What would be most ideal would be to have the gloves already. Somebody, I need you to hand me some gloves, to hand me some money there in the glove store, so I may hand that money in my glove to the cashier there, whose name is French for casher, and she will hand me the coins I'll catch in my leather palm, or velvet palm, or artificial breathable fibers like Lance Armstrong, an athlete of my time. I would like enough money for gloves, enough gloves for money, and 2 hid hands held by my secret skin. Once, before I knew I was a kind of lesbian, when I just liked boys, when I was but a bored, I mean when I despised mine own thin, small-boned chest, I saw on her, we were in somebody's driveway in full sun, a classmate wore a hand, a little charm on a chain, palm down, penny-length ornament that rested past her clavicle, above her breasts. It is the part I now know I love to touch the best, just where the fat starts. I stood though, dumbstruck, not knowing yet that I am a hand and my sex is a hand. I thought, how erotic. How could it be so erotic? How secret that her necklace touches her. She wears the touch in public. Okay, I'll read from my book some. I hope you're all good out there. I have a real radio feeling. I feel like I'm like alone at a radio station, even though I'm in my room and my girlfriend is here. And there's no radio, and I can see myself. And that's really different probably from the experience of a radio person. Tandem. I'll take a long view of the legs, and I'll readily endure them. I will even hallow them as a speaker set. I'm actually tripping. I'm not. But you see how some skins go red, yellow, red, yellow? I was tripping, saying I could see all my fat and the blood cohabiting. But I could. The legs take a stance. The legs have opinion. The legs make the ground distant. I'm kidding. They're inside. It's floor. And I'm kidding. I'm sitting. The legs blotch like flypaper pigment. They're loudspeakers today, playing the cassette of the cunt and its wishes. I wish they would play it more quiet. The legs go hither and thither, just blasting the cunt's wants like you and you, you and you. The cunt wants in twos, or the legs fathom binaries better. They play loudly, and jigging with speed forgo unction, spraying their reserves in the noon air. So sun robs them mid-motion. This sun shows nothing new, the legs, like all movers, moved by a desiring engine. And protracted desire devours treasure. For example, wallets dry up on the dance floor. But the legs come out upright. I will allow them, pillars to my deity, pinnacles for my non-parel, my succulent, all of a unity, paddles for the cleaved canoe, breathes heady air from the leg's height it wants. I believe in the cunt. I'll believe in the legs later. No. I like flipping through my book and saying no. No. It makes me feel rich. Time check. If the planets shift next, you'll probably get very dreamy. If you are in relationship, you'll feel afloat. Together, like a holding raft, and not awake at all. You'll be aloft, on water, the air, whatever pliant element, the couch. If your hair is long, it will fall. If your back is bare. If your hair is high, will mat. When you take a walk, you'll find yourself letting yourself walk. 1 block or 2 out of the route, not more, if you want, or you'll enjoy relief from the pressure of new air. If you have a child, your shrugs will frustrate them. You are evolving. If you know your father, you will find him on a porch and hang out with drinks. If you have ice, if you feel yourself becoming stranger, howdy stranger. If you lapse in love, your private love, the stars are fine. The floor remains in place. I'm wet now. I don't need to be healthy, but I like the smell of health. Come here. I'll put my nose in your lily neck. Now how lucky for how long will I be in my dwelling? I feel the fugly luck of passing by the right bridge in the rain. Now when I lie on grass, my body makes space by grasses bending. If I lie here long, I'll kill it all, and I'll be death's impressioner. Now do I have to build a bench or learn to sit more softly? Why my body won't live long enough in Spain or Philadelphia, Oakland, or anywhere to feel I am a native plant contributing, useless. I don't like it, but I feel alone. Your parasite, a parasite of art and Philadelphia and earth. Sometimes I don't brush my teeth, and I taste like dying, and I die. Or I feel like your imaginary friend, or I smell like you. What night? This is the part after you find yourself not the hero, but the sacrifice, where you decide your people deserve you and enter the room now. Good move. Where you tell your mother she is more beautiful than traveling. Your words are beautiful, more so than truth. It's not too hot in the Inland Empire. At night, blankets, use your hands to tell a long story, wherein not much happens but some jokes. Find yourself become abrupt, like a freaky old professor, where in your career you've already shrunk in place and drinking wine it stays, the flush. Good story. Wherein you get really knocked up after a night imprinted badly. Hide the child in wood. How free. About when you still bleed quarter time. When what happens at home necessarily stays between sheets. In the squat you wake with it caked in your skirt. Go to meet a friend, to find you've become colleagues. Way. When it pushes shadows from the trees and presses it from their needles outside the dye house, and the bus is dark inside, when it picks apart the lawn and you are here, will you soften me for the sun? Will you deflect it? I'm blinking in the atrium, the library. I don't know if you have a room for me or where on me you can lie down. But I want my anger easily exhausted, the way fact takes the rug from an argument. We both go on the floor. I do feel your shade, your wavy bows. You dream you are leaving me. I would become an ordinary person if you did. But you are awake, and I am ordinary anyway, and it pushes through me. Okay, those are all poems from my book. Which it has been a dream having it come out from City Lights. And yeah, it's been a dream. I'm gonna read you like two-ish newer poems. Sapphic 20. Women will always have shoulders. They won't always be women. They'll have shoulders. Beloveds will always turning a shoulder before light of when that breaks through what? Drink water from a seen-through cylinder. Her shape a shape against. A beloved will turn water from her shoulder. Why do I like to be across the room? I am sick with love. It has spoilt my pleasure. I do not want to travel or cast a shadow. I do not want to summer in the city. I only want each day to sign the possibility of her arrival. Like a tanned edge of toast signifies crispness. I'm going to stop there. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Sophia. That was incredibly beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Uche now. So Uche Nduka is an itinerant poet and professor presently living on Bainbridge Island near Seattle. He was born in Nigeria, was raised bilingual in Igbo and English, and earned his BA from the University of Nigeria. He left Nigeria in 1994 and settled in Germany after winning a fellowship from the Goethe Institute. In 2007, he immigrated to the United States, where he would earn his MFA from Long Island University, Brooklyn. Nduka is the author of numerous collections of poetry and prose, including the US published books Living in Public, 2018, 9 East, in 2013, Injele, in 2012, and Eel on Reef, in 2007. His work has been translated into German, Finnish, Italian, Dutch, and Romanian. City Lights Books recently published Facing You as number 19 in their Spotlight series, which I also had the wonderful pleasure of reading and cannot wait to ask some questions about. And with that, Uche.
Thank you, Tatiana, for that introduction. And thank you, Steve, for inviting Sophia and I to read for the Poetry Center. It's a very good opportunity to be able to continue sharing our words. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. I would like to read from a book that came out just before Facing You, Living in Public. I'll start with Living in Public, then read some from Facing You, and then conclude with just a few from a new manuscript I'm still calling the Bainbridge Island Notebook, so that we could start from where the things that were published that came out, we can start from them and then move on to something that is very, very fresh as being written yesterday. And what I can say regarding the connection between the books right down to the notebook is that they're all, at times I'm writing, I'm carrying the continents I've lived in. Starts from Nigeria, my home country, right down to Europe, and then to America. So the three continents are being referenced all the time. The three continents practically have inspired laws of the world that have come out through my own efforts at the moment. So let me start with Living in Public. Just a few poems from it. And Living in Public is a volume of poems that has 168 numbered sections, 168 numbered sections. So in other words, they are untitled. The poems are just numbered. So I just read from poem number 55. As you teach, I grow into the pad. I strum your clitoris, aria and padio. I split a mask apart. I split a meat apart. You go on pulling down your stockings. A wine glass appears in your hand. There are worse things than having a leg fetish. 56. Wet, naked, wet, naked. I've seen a library panic from a labyrinth to a body in semi-liberty. What we know about Jazeera when I come to you to bed my soul. 57. For they gathered around the laurel warning, how the uncomfortable became the undiscussable. Then come rings, then come boys, ready to scramble thought. Hobby sense is turbulence. Our interest, if not dust, the treachery of a bird cage, the treachery of a bird cage. 60. In the rarity of sleep, or plainly sleeping with you, the dominion of your tongue tip, snuggling up, or steamy caress, the vibration on air, the moist possibilities of your open ties, 2 minutes to midnight. 63. I thought love made people jump off bridges, set fire to their living rooms. When I said your skin didn't need to shout commands, I went to see the deleted scenes. Don't complain about all you had done, all you had seen. 67. It was you who predicted a never-ending military invasion, scoutings, bombings, arsons, acons eaten by canter, clash of tirades and dawn, solar dirge, burnt candies, a mixtape for winter, ministrations of hipsters in high line. '73, depths of the redux. Finality is an edifice that invites its own destruction. When a fiddle plays you, a blue light that surrounds you, a poem waiting to come to life, but also the laziness of the darkness, a shift in a world's nectar. Be benevolently difficult. Women of dive bars, body ennobled by nudity, and the lamp in the snow, and the lamp in the snow. So I move over now to Facing You, which is my latest volume from City Lights. I thank those in City Lights who chose to publish it, for spreading the word wider around the world. Been getting letters from all sorts of places because of the book. Just last night, I got a letter from an editor from Sweden, wanting to publish something. So I thank the City Lights for the publication. So I would like to begin reading from the book with a poem titled Brown Cover. And it's a poem that started from Nigeria. So let's start from the origins. Brown Cover. Nigerian party, keep that rice jumping. Morning of the imperfect pitch. Inventory for the pitfalls of orels. Rum in the bone, a blob to sink a book and pluralize a day. And when I briefly came to your house, you were not bad enough for my taste. I only wanted to talk to the fishes in your fish pond. Prowl the party with a pout. Tiger streak at dawn. Fire to crackling fire. We go to the next, is titled Standing Witness. Become dead, becomes dead, left to right, moves from being a liberator to being a tyrant, becomes cruel. Like every dude smoked mirror, he makes assumptions he is doing everything right. The lukewarm shall never save us. Standing rock, standing witness. A return to beauty, the next poem. Was a poet without the gift of rashness. Tacos for you and this bonny day. A return to beauty I have come to terms with. Sky and east praise of panties between chair and flower pot. Juice alone does not define us as you sit on my face. I've got my eye on your eyelids, breasts, half of a yellow sun in a state of emergency. What else is being said? The next poem. Kiss yourself on the lips. Let the blood scribble on this fold out. I want a rematch with the deity. What else is being said over the phone? where romances wear masks. At 8:30, when flowers berate bed covers. To touch is the title of the next poem. The oscillates in the abyss of a first page. To touch is to reverse the absent-mindedness of emerald. In this circle, an eye flash to herald the emerald. Umlaut, not ring finger. Caresses repeat upon a harmonium. To pluck a fruit is to see tattoos fused with curves. An ebbing memory inclined to singularities. Back of the hand, back of the leg. Riding a Honda. Riding a Honda across the farms and palm trees of Nduka. The poem catches light. Let's unsettle this settlement. Rooting for chances for with balaclavas. The bold in review. Bright nomad. No stopping. Not the end of the line. A good thing. Next poem. Everyone burning shade, the jars that rushed in without you. Of arteries, their sanctuaries, and imprints that become less important. It's not hard to have a falling out with an onion. For miles and miles, you give me every good thing you can keep. We ride our agonies to death. Sarah Tita is the next poem. Carnelin, you broke echoes and sang me into a blue sky. I ride with summer inside you later. Bongoing, you got loose and sank me into a poem and a half a day. I ride with summer inside you later. And the poem takes off her undies. Of imprinting, the next poem. When I touch your spine or your nipple, may you take over the green knot, take root. The subbolt with its prospecting year. On the bramble, the signpost catches fire. This poem smells of both of us. Two lovers, the next poem. Of the two lovers, hold the one with a rectangle. When will these skinny minutes put on more flesh? Somewhere inside brightness is a doorbuster. Overcrushed eyes, letters of spice and journals of smoke. Into the pollen, the next poem. Tenderness needs no corrections, no plots. When you read this, you will find me. Happiness is not a consolation prize for spinelessness. Do you mean that meaning is impossible? It's always new? Air around the vase is the next poem. We prayed before and after war and felt sick about it later. I want, if possible, a little bit of an insane world. I am a sucker for toy shops. Tuesday fled on a boat. Inside an azalea is an exclamation point. The next poem is titled Poetry. Sometimes, as someone who writes poetry, you keep asking yourself, what exactly is poetry? And for me, it's a question that needs to be asked practically on a daily basis. Because for me, poetry is not just, it's only what you've written down, what you've scribbled. It's also about the life lived, about the life you're aspiring towards living. It is practically all encompassing. So the definition for poetry is something that we both have to be revisited continually. So, poetry. When I asked why he was shot on the street by a cop, they counter asked, what does that have to do with poetry? No replication is the next poem. I did speak to the darker moments of a sounding board. Take after quick take in the Southern Heights. Poems in various states of undress. I want nothing more than to avert the indignity of a horrid footage. Those riots are courts too. Extreme weather, the next poem. I on the exit, next to the pleasure of watermarks on blank paper. Turn me in, tuck me in. I thought you might get a kick out of leaning on my door. The next poem, Losing My Cool. That expression is another expression I find ambiguous. Losing my cool. This song is shitty, and she's cutting me, and I'm losing my cool. Nobody is overly concerned with who is leaking military secrets to the enemy. Life's hard, but not so hard that she won't get it on with me. The rain takes out the trash. We stand our ground. Life's hard, but not so hard that I won't get it on with her. From your slant, the next poem. Keep showing gum. These are metrics of a meltdown. A life of seeing and being seen, approaching 130 decibels. A surrender to the moon kiting in the sky. Slam the car door and see who comes out. Shoot, talk, rosebush. The rubble this time. From your slant, then from mine. Or somebody else ambushed by a mugging. Is the print of love becoming too small for you to read? Ponder the Great is the next poem. On this black sand, mayhem is not misdirection. I can't take their totalitarian logic anymore. Don't cover this hiatus in fellow feeling with mumbo jumbo. I'm not here to sound grand about these double agents of designer protest. Of course, obsessional grottiness does not come into it. Ponder the great for the longest shot. I don't seek immunity. I will not be neutral with calamity. And the next poem, I haven't seen enough of you. Must the poem only catch me behaving correctly? You came closer to read the lines written all over my body. I haven't seen enough of you. I haven't seen you enough. I need something better than a guide. I need someone I can get lost in. The next, in another direction, the next poem. What is found in the wilderness knows you. If ever he is in the room. The country is not yet running out of bean bags. In another direction, a fever is a prompt. This country is not yet running out of beer halls. And the last poem I would like to read. Always be true. The title. It sounds easy, but it's one of the most difficult things to do. Always be true. By the dash light, riding shotgun. No matter what, always be true to your contradictions. May take us a while to get there. Always be true to your idiosyncrasies. Be extra tender. May take us a while to fly blind. You kicked me harder than you know. A bowl of sorrow in the aisle. Passing by my antenna, mooning around. Take it and run. What you sing sinks you, not of the border. That's it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, everyone, I think, Sophia, are you willing to be unmuted?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So everyone, we're going to be opening it up to questions. I'm going to encourage Uche and Sophia to have a conversation. And I have one question, but before that, if you do want to not use the Q&A function on the bottom of your screen, you can also raise your hand. And that's a function that if you go to the upper right-hand corner of your screen, a blue box with white ellipses will appear and you can click on it, and I think it'll allow you to do that. I could be very, well, let me see. No, actually that's not how you do it, and I'm very sorry. I just gave everyone terrible directions. Don't listen to me in that regard. But if you click on the participants button, I think it can let you do that. Yeah, so you are both probably sick and tired of hearing this about both of your books, but they are incredibly sexy. Is that a, yeah.
I'm not sick and tired of hearing that.
Okay, all right. My raised Catholic face just blushed so much saying that word, sexy. And yeah, and I, especially in this time of quarantine, this time absent of touch and absent of like sensuality in the material world, these books were like just really delightful to read, especially in tandem. And I also just wanted to ask, like, kind of going off of Uche's intro to his poem poetry, just like how it's the life aspired towards living and how that needs to be revisited continually. And just how I want to like ask, I suppose, like, how do you feel like sensuality would inform that life that needs to be lived. And not just necessarily in your writing, but also like, you know, outside of that IRL.
I would say right away that it seems that lots of us live too much in our heads. We tend to overthink. See, we overthink things. You know, there's nothing wrong with reflection. There's nothing wrong with meditation. But even before the pandemic set in, you know, there's still this tendency to over-intellectualize. And I think that for me personally, a life without sensuality is no life.
Mm-hmm.
And sensuality, of course, does what? It also encompasses thought, it encompasses the body, it encompasses the spirit. Because at times there is this Cartesian division people have of the body is out there, the spirit is in the other direction. You know, the body is sinful and all that crap, you know, that the religious try to shove down our necks. I don't buy it. You know, the body is beautiful, the body is paradisical, and the body is problematic. But you can live life without taking all this on. You can say because life is difficult, well, you can't live it anymore. You know, part of what we are called to do once we are put in this planet is just to keep moving on, despite setbacks, despite disrespect, despite abuses, despite misunderstanding. You're just going to keep going. You know, you're going to look at the other side. When people tell you life is ugly, remind them that life is beautiful. Yes, there's ugliness, but there's also what? Beauty. If people tell you, oh no, there are mean people all over the place, tell them there are fantastic people too. There are fabulous human beings in this planet. And I'm not going to give up my faith because of some mean people, because of people filled up with hatred. If that is what turns them on, that is their business, but not mine. Anyway, I will continue afterwards. So go on, or else I will take up the whole time.
That was I knew you'd have a really good answer to that. It was like a hook first. I have, the first thing that occurred to me, I guess, is just, yeah, it's really hard to like sometimes to confront matter directly. And I think poetry helps me do that. Yeah, it's easy to exit, you know, your body or to try to, as Uche says, over intellectualize relationships with things. So a lot of my poetry is just like trying to find surfaces and feel them. I think I also, yeah, Uche, just loved what you said, and I want to, like, at the end when you went from like people have a cynical view of the world and we can refuse that, and I think there's also kind of an optimism in returning to the physical, because it's grounding, right? It's like, okay, like no matter how shit the world is and blah blah, you know, I'm here, and so is everything, and that's, I think for me, it works that way also, that in order to be in the place where I'm writing a poem, I also have to be reaching for the matter of things.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that is really beautiful. And I feel like you're writing in this book. I'm gonna like hold it up. I'm gonna hold up both of your books. City Lights accidentally sent me 2 copies of each that I got both this morning.
Cool.
So.
Went to a friend.
I'm very wealthy in poetry right now.
Yeah.
Two particular books. Yeah, and I feel like, Sophia, like I felt such envy like reading this, because it really spoke. I mean, it almost to me feels speculative in that it seems to exist in this like completely different, divorced universe from what we have right now, what we're living in right now. And it just, I found myself like missing like the backs of my thighs sticking to that, what is it, like that synthetic material on cars in like Southern California heat. And it just like, I mean, especially like on a rainy day in San Francisco. And also like, it didn't have the same experience with you, Uche, in that it didn't feel speculative to me, but it did feel like this incredible document of desire just like coming to light. Like it almost felt like it just slid off the page. Like I had I keep coming back to this word sensual, and I am like somebody who does consider myself devoted to sensuality. And for those of you who don't know me, I like live with sometimes debilitating neural pain. And so I'm like constantly feeling, and my system is constantly in fight or flight. So I have no choice to be here, you know, and to be present and to be in this world. And so these two books were just absolutely, I'm like being such a fan right now, like just oozing. But yeah, I also want to remind people, I want to remind our 27 attendees that you are more than welcome to ask a question. Just hit that Q&A button, or you can raise your hand if you figured out how to do that with my terrible instructions. I also really do want to encourage the two of you to please continue on. Uche, if you want to continue on that thought that you had before, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask something, Sophia something. I just wish we were in a smoky, noisy bookstore doing this,
Yeah.
so that we can be yelling, above the noise, while conversing. But, well, this is what we find ourselves in, so we better manage it, so to say. Sophia, I find your work very, very playful. There is this playfulness to it. No matter the dark theme you're exploring, the playfulness comes in. And there are these PD jump cuts that also set in. That is something. And the other thing is, because of that, the line seems to be slippery. These slippery lines, interpret it any way you chose. But I just want to ask, is that how your mind works?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's how my mind some things. Yeah, I think I have a lot of associations firing at all times, and I tend to write these poems. I tend to write them really quickly, and then edit them very slowly. But they happen like, like that. Yeah, I think it's all play up in here. I actually wanted to ask you about the way that you write too, Uche, because we both write, well, in these New City Lights books, we're both writing kind of short poems. We're writing short, disconnected, and very sexy poems. I think none of these things are particularly trendy at the moment. And it's true, right? And I guess I just I wondered, like, for you, do you write a poem that starts out longer and do you bring it down to this short size? I feel like when you talk, everything you say is very deliberate. Like it's like I feel like you talk line by line. So I can also imagine you writing like line by line and just like I know what comes next. I know what comes next. But maybe that's just my fantasy of your writing practice. So
yeah, the truth is, to be honest, I found it very surprising that the affinity we both have in writing is this way of starting from somewhere and then ending up sometimes very far away from where we started. I just said, did we talk to each other while we were writing our books? I simply noticed those stylistic affinity that is there. And coming directly to the question, no, it doesn't happen that way at times. It seems for me, this particular book actually seems to be the shortest poems I've ever written in comparison to my other books and so on. And at times, I don't know about you, but when a book is growing in you and coming out, what I try to do is to find out which direction the book wants to go. And that's at times difficult, can be exasperating, because already you've written some things, so you already have some styles within you waiting, roaring to storm the page, you know. But then the book is like, oh no, this is not where I'm going, you know. You've done that poem before, you have to do a new poem. Just stop repeating yourself or something. So for me, the delight of producing each new volume is actually discovering where I have landed. The surprise and that humbling surprise that art brings to me as a practitioner, you know, I find it life enhancing personally, in lots of ways, because it's not something I can authorize. You know, I can't order the poems, you know, around really. You know, in fact, it happens the other way around. The poems order me around. You know?
Well, if we're lucky, they order us around.
So in that sense, you know, I would simply say, I think simply I'm a vessel through which the poems come. You know, I'm just one of the vessels through. Sometimes the word I use is I'm a secretary to the spirits. You know, the spirits dictate, then I just write down what they want to say. So my job mainly, you know, I think as a writer is to listen deeply, you know, to avoid some kind of distractions that is keeping the words that want to come out because of sometimes self-censorship, you know, because of sometimes, you know, I don't know about you, but too, if you've had some books that you've had reviews written, essays written, suddenly you're just thinking, oh Lord, what is that critic going to say about this one? They're going to roast me alive or whatever. But still, in spite of that, you know, the desire, the strength, the courage to move on is what I always pray for. And that to me, what results in books, you know. And because of that, I find the position of a poet a humbling one, really. It's a very, very humbling position. Other people might, you know, yell about it, try to celebrate and all that. That's cool for them. But for me, each time I'm dealing with a new poem, I'm like trying to tear my hair out. I mean, that's all I can say for now.
Damn. So we do have some questions for the audience, for the two of you.
Good.
So an anonymous attendee asks, do you have any tips for young poets out there? I know, it's a sweet question.
It's a great question because it's so hard to be a young poet out there.
Yes.
It really is. I mean, it's probably harder now than it's ever been. You know, when you're young, you're supposed to be with people even more, right? And I think that's so much of being a young poet is just showing up awkwardly and kind of saying the worst thing that you could have possibly said to all the poets that you admire, right? That's still my practice, but but yeah, I mean, I think right now, I think as a young poet right now, you should read a lot of poems, and you should be really indulgent in what you write about, and literally just write anything that's interesting to you. Don't try to write like something, you know, correct or serious. Try to follow whatever fucked up impulses you have. And that's really good advice, honestly. I can't say anything better than that. I'll leave it there. Write a lot.
Yeah. I would simply say, be open to life. You know, try and muster the courage to be open to life and be open to influences. You know, don't be afraid of influences. This stuff about the anxiety of influence, you know, that Harold Bloom mentioned about, just throw it out of the window. Don't be anxious about influences. If you want to be original, swallow your own head. That's the line by a Nigerian poet called Chinweizu. You know, if you want to be original, swallow your own head. You know, at times this drive to be original actually ends up killing the artist, killing the poet.
Yeah.
Because you are afraid. Oh, they will say I sound like the other person. I said I sound like the other person. What's wrong with sounding like the other person? You know, So it's very, very important as somebody who's writing and somebody who, because I regard a poet as somebody who is also what? A living being in the sense of what? Being open to existence, being open to pain, and being open to joy. You can't just not have, can't have one without the other. Because the fear is always, oh, I don't want to be hurt. Oh, I want to have this good reputation and all that. If you keep thinking about those such things, you will simply kill the work that wants to come out. The work is adventurous. I would say try and be adventurous. You know, bungle it, make mistakes. You know, don't keep trying to write a classic, you know, or that this is what is going on. I would say don't follow any trends.
Unless you really want to.
Yes.
Yeah.
You see? Except if you want to. Yes. You know, have that openness. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, but still don't feel you are being pulled towards one direction, either because of, you know, what your creative writing teacher said, or what your informal mentor said, or whatever it is. It's like discover some things yourself. That's it. You know, and you can't do that if you're not open to existence. So that's the word I would say. It's always be open to existence, and the poems will come. Yes.
And this is a question for all three of us. And it's from Garrett. Hello, Garrett. Garrett Caples.
Hi, Garrett.
All right. Do you find that there's a resistance among poets to include the erotic in their work? I sometimes feel like it's looked at askance in the poetry world.
Well, I wouldn't say in general. I would simply say that.
Yeah, I would say in general too.
I would say that in terms of American poetry, you know, people seem to be afraid of the erotic. Put it that way. Most poets seem to be afraid of the erotic. And I think I would say specifically American poetry, because it's not like that in some other poetry beyond America. You know, in lots of European countries I've lived in or visited, their poets are intensely erotic. You know, in the continent I come from, Africa is an erotic continent, not to talk of Nigeria itself. Nigeria is intensely erotic. So it's not, these things are not just things that you simply try to affect, you know, or try to imitate. It's just that I noticed there seems to be that, the word is Puritanism. There is Puritanism in American poetry that I find awful.
Embarrassing.
And yes, it's just embarrassing. You know, it weakens the poetry. You know, that Puritanism weakens it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you just have these lengthy things they write. And after reading it, I don't find anything really, you know, because of what? Because you're just trying to be smart on the page. You know, it's just about poetry, it's about smartness, you know, and avoiding what is right there, that what you live with day in, day out. Okay, that's their choice, but it's not mine. That's what I can say for now.
Mm-hmm. Sophia?
Yeah, I think there is a real hesitancy around it. I mean, I think there's a lot of sexy poetry happening in the, you know, like still in the States. But I do think there's I think that to take Eros as a subject is really not considered serious, I think. And I feel like it leads to some unfortunate tendencies, you know, like you hear a lot of poetry. I think actually I get this especially from younger poets, where they're really sexy, you know, they're young, sexy people full of sex, and they're writing poems that are allegedly about something else. But they, you know, you give yourself away because you give a reading and your reading gets really sexy, you know, and you're like, the capitalism, and it's very important to hold questions of sex and capitalism together, obviously, but in many ways. But there's I think like a tendency to sort of act like you're not interested in these things as much as you are, and it just feels disingenuous to me, because come on. What's the third, you know, like every third or seventh thought we have? Maybe I shouldn't assign numbers to things. I'll give myself away. But, you know, people... Lots of people think about sex a lot, and people who don't think about sex a lot, you know, are also physical beings, you know, who have sensual experiences. I'm not trying to create like an aphobic theory of poetry here, but I think that it's enough. Like any subject is enough in a poem. Any subject is enough.
Fantastic, Sophia. Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I blushed when I said sexy about 20 minutes ago, so that should say enough about me. And I also, you know, being from Latin America, like I sometimes do find myself both as a person and as a poet being exoticized. And alongside that, that comes like, you know, with being the Spitfire, being this like sexy, dark-haired person, which I guess I am. And just how, you know, I have been told by white people, specifically by white cis men, that I embody my poetry, and which is pretty erotic. And that sometimes can feel really awful. You know, it's basically someone telling you, like intellectualizing their own objectification of you. So I don't know if there's a resistance necessarily. I do think that there's almost like a just outright rejection of it. And I think that, you know, I do like that we are focusing with American poetry, like, and I feel weird saying American poetry, but US poetry, I should say, because I am an American poet. I'm just not necessarily from the US. So that there is like this deep Calvinist culture, you know, where the devil is lurking everywhere in this, you know, frontier, and that it does enter us like through our senses, through sensuality. So, and that, you know, it's why like all of the 7 deadly sins are related to our senses, you know. So yeah, I guess that's my answer.
That's next territory. Sorry,
I'm
what Uche, what were you saying? I talked over you.
No, I just said that's an insightful take on that. I like it. Like that.
Thank you. All right, so another question, and this one's from Jacob Khan, the beloved Jacob Khan. Hi, Tatiana. Can you ask them both to talk about their writing practices during the pandemic? Axel Jacob, Axel Tatiana. Yeah, so would the two of you mind talking about that? I know, Uche, that you're writing what you described as an untitled manuscript, just called Bainbridge Island Notebook.
Yes, yes. Well, for me, as a writer, you know, whether there's a pandemic or not, I still keep to the practice. You know, I still keep open to what wants to come out and to what wants to get to me, for me to be able to, you know, write it down. So I don't think I actually adopted any particular sort of monastic writing practice suddenly, or it's a practice that suddenly makes me to be very disciplined or something. Because to be honest, the way I write poetry is not disciplined. I write in fits and starts. You know, it's very, very undisciplined, the way I write poetry. In fact, it's prose that I discipline myself to write. When I have to write an essay, for instance, you know, I sit down and like, okay, we have the first paragraph, how does that, you know, go and all that. With poetry, for me, it's almost like I catch the lines from the air, you know, that's why I say it. So I wouldn't say there's a particular practice that I actually adopted during this pandemic, except that I'm still writing, you know, I'm still working on it. And I don't have an excuse to say because of the isolation, but because I can see most of my friends, I know I have to stop writing and all that. I don't know if I stop writing, what will happen to me. In fact, I don't know. I don't want to think about that yet. So I stopped there.
Yeah, you gotta keep writing. But I don't know. I've been have so many answers, and I think that's because it keeps changing, right? I mean, pandemic for various reasons has been really stressful. My mind doesn't always work very well, and I don't always want to push it to work very well. A lot of the times I just want to let it relax, because that's one of the things that I can control, you know. I mean, I can't actually make it relax. I can't control that, but I can like watch television or read like children's books, you know, like I've been reading like children's fantasy books. So I don't think I have like one writing practice in COVID, but during the times that I have been able to write, it's largely been because other people have been inspiring. I'm currently doing a poem a day thing, which is a great thing to do occasionally with some friends. My girlfriend and I live with my girlfriend. We moved in a panic at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was a really smart decision. But she's a poet, you know, Violet Spurlock. So we write together, you know, or she'll write. I'll see her like diligently working on something, and I'm like, I guess I would also like to be you. Yeah. I want to be like her. So that's been really helpful.
Cool.
I'm astonished that both of you were able to write. But yeah, I mean, I do think that keeping, like Violet keeping you accountable is like, I'm not surrounded by anybody, so I'm not writing. But
If you wanna join a Google Doc with me anytime, Tatiana, I love your work. I would read it every day.
I can't even answer a phone call, so it's like I'm also like working outside of the house.
Forget it.
Yeah, I know. It's like, it's just one of those things where I've just kind of, it's like radical acceptance, like, and engaging with language. And especially like one that I write in English and it's not my first language, and I'm still very clumsy in it. And which I think is really wonderful for being a poet, but for communicating effectively, like I feel like all of my energy is going into like communicating effectively with others, such as Adrian, the FedEx man, this morning, and with the two of you. And we have just one more question, and if we want to keep on going, or we have until 8:30, or we can just after. So, all right. So Derek C asks, how do I get more connected to the body and live there whilst living in a more heady and repressed society? Jesus Christ. All right. Who would like to take this first?
What'd you say?
Sophia, go for it.
Go for it.
Oh, I'm going first. Okay, yeah. Well, I think I would actually love to answer this question, because I think that my relationship to like my body and sensuality and my actual writing practices are not actually, like, they're connected intellectually, but I don't have a somatic practice in my writing. And I know a lot of poets do, and I'm very interested in like somatic exercises and what they bring you. But for me, like writing is generally a practice of being like, you know, like in an impossible posture, like damaging every part of me, and it's not really about like connecting to, you know, like aligning my core and igniting my chakras or whatever you're supposed to do. So I think generally in your life, you know, you should like sleep, and you should eat, and drink water, and coffee's hydrating too. You know, they don't want you to know that, but it is. So is wine, so is beer. You know, like live an embodied life, and maybe move around sometimes, and maybe like kind of like cool this if like you're touch starved. But then when you're writing, you don't actually have to be doing any of that. I mean, personally, I just fantasize about things, or I remember nice stuff. And it comes into the writing on its own. That's my answer. You made me go first.
It was a great answer.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, now I'm like following that. I have something like an exercise that my godmother, my poetry Nina, Naomi Quinones, taught me, which is you rub your hands together like very, very, very quickly. And then immediately you spread them apart and you can immediately feel the heat. Like it's like a wall of expanding heat from your hands. So sometimes I do that. Masturbating in the sun.
Fantastic.
That's a really good tip for any question anyone asks.
Anything. I mean, I don't know who is participating. My mother said that she might drop in, but masturbating in the sun and drinking lots of water. And if you take a 30-minute walk, your entire blood supply cycles through once. So.
Yes, I think definitely that's a very, very important advice, masturbating in the sun. I will also recommend masturbating in the moonlight. Particularly when it's full moon, there is a tendency for the body to liaise at that particular moment. It's not even about the moon dragging the tides and all that. I'm simply talking about straightforward. So that there is something, at least for me, that seems to liaise with the moon. When the moon is up, there are more honey. The moon makes me honey. I don't know why. And at that point, I don't quite need any specific technique, to be able to get in touch with my body. It's like every part of my body is roaring at that moment.
Wow.
So in fact, the issue is how do I calm it down? How do I calm the situation? Because it becomes almost like an emergency. So that's one. The next, like just Tatiana said, is about make sure that you move your body somehow each day. If it's just a jog or if it is a walk you want to do or whatever, but just this tendency of always simply being a couch potato, does not really help with sensuality, much of it. You just have to move your body somehow, no matter what it is. Just step out of the house. Take the dew, take the snow, no matter the weather. At least for me, I always step out of the house. Wander around. You don't need to make it a project, but just wander around too. Let the light see you. Let the sky see you. Let the trees see you. And then you can come back. Because with all these things that some of us, identify as inanimate and so on, I think we have to learn how actually very close woven we are, interwoven we are with the landscape, the seascape, the trees, the hills, and so on. You definitely have to go see them, make conversation with them, talk to the flowers. These are all part of the way you do what? You get attuned to your senses. Shout to the trees. Take the dog for a walk. Stroke a cat. All those things matter a lot. For me, I think, you take a walk down somewhere, touch something. You might just touch a promontory, you might just touch a tree, you might touch a grass or whatever it is, but be in touch with something. All this idea of always enclosing yourself because of either safety or whatever, right? I mean, it might be nice, but this is the way I say it. I just need to be plugged into the universe. And some of these ways that I've mentioned and some of the ways that I'm plugged into the universe, I go say hello to the sun when it's rising in the morning. Wave to the body of water that's near where I live. I don't need to go there and jump into the water, but you just say hello to the water, while you walk by. So there are lots of things you can engage with, when even in a pandemic, when you don't have what it's so called, when you have such physical body, that's so close to you and all that. And I think by the time this becomes a habit, you realize actually that it's not something that you have to be thinking about how to do or find techniques for doing it. It just becomes a part of you. It becomes natural. Because for me, the what sensuality is really about, what it comes down to, it's about being natural to the universe we are in and being really a part of it. and not just being what? Bystanders and observers. Always trying to observe and comment on it. You should be living, you should be jumping into it, be a part of it on a daily basis. That's the way I say it. I'll stop there for now.
You said something very, very important earlier in this, Uche, which was like, it doesn't need to be a project. And I think that's something that's like very important, is that in living and in making work, and this kind of goes back to poetry is the life aspired towards living, is living the life aspired towards living, which really reminds me of one of my favorite Dorothy Day quotes, who's the Catholic worker activist, which is live as if the truth were true. But yeah, that not everything has to be a project. Everything, like nothing has to be like that. There's a difference between a project and a practice, and there's a difference between, living poetry versus writing poetry under capitalism. And especially in this time of, the poetry industrial complex and everything involved within that. But yeah, so I would also like to note that today's a new moon right now. We're having a new moon. Yes, so it's a wonderful time to manifest, actually. Because when there's a full moon, that's a time to let things go, which makes it an excellent time to masturbate. But with that, I would really love to thank the both of you so much for this lovely evening. And with that, I'd also like to thank everybody else for coming from your living room, your bedroom, from your home, from wherever you're experiencing the new moon with us this evening.
Thank you so much for having us. And thank you, Sophia, for reading with me again, for agreeing to.
Thank you, Uche. I'll do it again.
Me too.
Yeah.
We're going to take it to the road.
Yeah, I'm telling you, virtual international tour. Thank you, Tatiana.
Thank you, Tatiana, too.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely.
For coordinating the whole stuff. Right
I know.
here.
Anytime, you know where to find me.
Good.
Right here.
Please.
So, yeah.
Great.
Thanks, Steve.
And thank you to Steve, to Molly,
To Molly, Che.
and to Trey. Thank you for being my wonderful co-host. I know, I feel like I'm on a radio. I feel like I'm like Amy Goodman right now, so like I keep like talking with like my pen and stuff, and I like don't know how to sign off because I feel like we're supposed to stay on, but I don't know.
I love the ends of these events. I love